Hey, it's Anita, and this is the Anita Posh Show. Hello everybody, welcome back again to the Anita Posh Show, where it is my pleasure to keep you up to date with topics around Bitcoin on a global stage and also the local impact it has on people like you and me. My guest is Exiledsurfer. He is a long-time Bitcoiner. He has been in the space since the beginning of the Bitcoin time, let's say it that way. He has a lot of experience about the developments in the Bitcoin space. He was there when Ethereum was founded, and he was also a part of the Bitcoin Foundation back in the days. Now he's part of the team at Sovryn, which is a decentralized exchange and a protocol on top of Rootstock, which is a sidechain of Bitcoin. So basically, we're talking about Bitcoin DeFi and the connections and relations to Ethereum and other blockchains. We're also going to talk about the Sovrynton, which is a hackathon organized by Sovryn, which starts tomorrow and where people come together to build new innovative applications on top of a decentralized protocol like Sovryn. After a short message, we're going to start and enjoy. Many people worry about the right storage for their Bitcoin. And yes, holding them isn't always easy. The safest way is offline, physically. That's why Coinfinity developed the card wallet, the professional and easy solution. Order it now at cardwallet.com/Anita and get 20% off. Do you want to stay up to date with the things that happen in Bitcoin from my point of view? Then subscribe to Anita's Weekly, my newsletter with articles, videos, quotes, short tips on how to use Bitcoin and all that for free. Subscribe to Anita's Weekly at anita.link/weekly. Hello, welcome Exiledsurfer to the Anita Posh Show. Glad to have you on.
Hey, Anita, welcome to the Exiledsurfer Show. Happy to be here.
What I know about you is that you're very long in the Bitcoin space. But to be honest, I don't know the story how you got into this place and what you like so much about Bitcoin. So at first, please introduce yourself in a general way to our audience.
Cool. So I basically went to university to get an email address in 1980 when it was still ARPANET and went through the first generation of the internet. And being on the first generation of the internet, there's places like the Well, that where all the thinkers and visionaries were. And, you know, so you end up being in a curious space and you follow mailing lists, you follow interesting things that are going on. One of those then was Cypherpunks mailing list, P2P Foundation mailing list, the places where the white paper was first published. So involved in those communities online. Didn't really take it seriously at the first glance, other than BitTorrent Bitcoin was about the level at which I took it seriously. Also at that time there was so like Liberty Dollars and BitGold and those sort of things that had gone up and gone down and been attacked by states. So that was part of the dialogue. And so Bitcoin was the latest generation of trying to do a non-state digital money. And so interesting, participating in the discussions, but not really going, I'm going to do this, right? And in 2009, basically, I had sold my advertising agency that I had in Istanbul and came back to Austria and was living on a farm on the Czech border, like literally, right on the Iron Curtain border. And at that time, basically, WikiLeaks showed up. Julian did a talk about WikiLeaks, launched WikiLeaks at Chaos in Berlin. So was around computer chaos and hacker space in Vienna. MetaLab was one of the first ones in Europe, and so was involved in those sort of communities. And so I was doing, basically being a creative guy, I was doing online memes about WikiLeaks, and then Anonymous happened, and then PayPal blocked WikiLeaks. So I was involved in this community, and that's when basically the light went off in my head. It was like, oh, okay, here's actually the use case for it. Here's an organization that's talking about transparency for organizations, privacy for individuals, and here's exactly the use case. PayPal blocks their money. We can use Bitcoin to support WikiLeaks. So that's the first time that it really went off in my head. Of course, in MetaLab, people were mining on laptops. We had the first USB ASICs and stuff like that. And Bitcoin was at like 30 cents at that time. And people were, when it went up to $1, it's like, should I sell now? I've got 2,000 Bitcoin. Should I sell them right now? Sort of thing. And guys putting their laptops in cold storage in bank vaults and all those sort of things. So pretty much, so from that time I've been involved. And then crypto Twitter being what it is, I met a guy named John Matonis, who was the founder of one of the founding executive director of the Bitcoin Foundation, along with Roger Ver and Mark Karpeles of Mt. Gox fame and Charlie Shrem of Silk Road Arrest fame. So a lot of colorful characters. And John came through Vienna on his way to go talk to Swift in 2013. And so he said, hey, let's have a coffee. So I met him for a coffee in Vienna. And he told me that the Bitcoin Foundation wanted to do new visual branding for their website. And so as a creative guy, he asked me if I could do the rebranding for a launch of the Bitcoin Foundation website. And I said, sure. And this was basically 2 weeks before Mt. Gox collapsed. And so I got a phone call, and before I'd even started, he said, hey, could you handle the DNS transfers for the Bitcoin Foundation? Because Gavin can't sign the binaries for for the latest Bitcoin release, and we can't get in touch with Mark because there's all this chaos going on. So Roger's going to fly down to Japan, and if you can take over, changing over the domains so that we have control of them, then let's get going. And I was like, okay, sure. so Roger literally called me from, I got SMS and voice to get the logins and passwords to do the domain transfers for the Bitcoin Foundation properties. And there I was, all of a sudden in the middle of what was going on. And it just sort of, went from there. Yeah, so that's essentially the origin story. There's a lot more since then, but
yeah, the short origin story that lasted a few years, actually.
Yeah. So until 2015, yeah, I was at the Bitcoin Foundation before Brock Pierce became the he's still there, I guess, right? I don't really pay attention to it too much because Brock is not really my cup of tea.
No, he's not. He's not. What happened to the Bitcoin Foundation? I thought it never worked.
Well, it still exists. I mean, the idea of the Bitcoin Foundation was that it was going to be something like the Linux Foundation, right? But then the fork wars happened, right? So I was like, managing the Bitcoin forums for the foundation and stuff, and all the people that you still see arguing about this stuff, Oliver Jansen's, and the whole block wars stuff, took place on the foundation forums very, very early, and it just sort of imploded. There's like a whole group of people that had a financial interest, right? So Eric Voorhees was also one of the directors, and he went on to do Shapeshift. So there was this there was a tension of people like Cody, Cody Williams. Is Williams his name? Anyway, so Amir Taki. So you have people like Amir Taki and Eric Voorhees, right, in the Bitcoin Foundation, and it was just like a natural tension. So you had, so it was just, so it just basically imploded with the whole block wars issue at that point. It went on, and of course, so there was a point at which Bitcoin was at like 2,000. And we were all going, okay, cool, there's a really big future. And we had this budget, and we did Bitcoin 2014. So my first crypto conference that I co-produced in Amsterdam. And there were companies like Circle, BitPay, Coinbase. They were the sponsors, and we had integrated their wallets with the Bitcoin Foundation site and stuff. So there was always this natural tension. And, there were people that wanted to make money with Bitcoin. There were people that wanted to enable just basically, permissionless transactions. And so the Bitcoin Foundation split up, Matonis left, different people left. And then I think Bruce Fenton came in, Brock came in, and then later it was Bruce Fenton. And it just sort of became irrelevant, sort of events and the acceptance of Bitcoin sort of like transcended what the Bitcoin Foundation had set out to do. And they didn't really have a clear mandate or a clear understanding of what it is that they wanted to do. So events just overtook the Bitcoin Foundation, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. But isn't that also the ethos of Bitcoin, to have no leaders and no mining council, for instance?
Exactly. So that was always, the tension right at the beginning. And, so there was, sort of like natural, good tendencies. The intentions were good, but that tension there of no leaders was always a criticism of the Bitcoin Foundation, right? And then you had Gavin going to talk to the CIA, to explain to them what's going on, and John running around talking to Swift and banks and talking to diplomats, and being out there and pimping the stuff. So there was good intentions, and then there were economic intentions, and those things are still we still have those issues today in Bitcoin, right? Like you say, with the mining council. So there's aspects that I like about what's happening with the dialogue around the mining council, right? So we're finally coming to the point where people are recognizing that Bitcoin has a place in energy calculations for the economy. And to rationalize that and to move forward into renewables is one of the original promises of Bitcoin, looking for the most efficient form of energy, and eventually that we have a real-time ticker of solar energy or wind energy or tidal energy that we're basing our economy on, rather than burning stored energy of the sun. So it's good that this dialogue is going on now, but again, there's that tension about control of the network. So I think it's a storm in a teapot. So the game theoretical, aspects of it is that people are incentivized to maintain the system together. I don't think it's likely that any one party is going to get a 51% hash rate of the market. It's more distributed than it's ever been now. Very, very interesting statistic is that 5% of hash power is in Iran. And that was, for me, when I read that day before yesterday, I just went like, oh yeah, here's Bitcoin's USP, right? So here it is that you and I and everybody that's into Bitcoin are looking at state level actors, right? And saying, I don't want to be under the financial regime of FATCA in America, right? That's just like a very, very personal point of view. Think about it when you're a state. America's been fucking with Iran for 4 generations, yeah, and they have heavy sanctions, and 5% of the hash power is there, and they're basically monetizing their oil over Bitcoin. So they're burning their oil and they're creating Bitcoin. They are supporting mining. A lot of it is governmental mining. But look at that and just consider that from a personal point of view. Here's a nation state that is fighting against America, right? So we're not even in the phase yet of actual nation state actors being, a threat to the average Bitcoiner. It's starting. So the mining council stuff is like a step in the right direction, that you have not the state actually mining, but at least setting some sort of standards about how it is that mining is happening. With private companies. And I do think that this dialogue will lead to some sort of rationalization and stabilization of the Bitcoin price, because you now have countries literally competing to regulate how it is that Bitcoin is integrated into the world's economic system. And if you want to look at it from that point of view, you could say that we've won, so to speak, right? It's always been the end goal that there's the acceptance. And when people talk about hyper-Bitcoinization and that, it's going to become the world system of money, well, how else is it going to become the world system of money unless governments are co-opting it? Long story short, I still think that Bitcoin's security guarantees, its consensual rules and whatever are strong enough to stand up to state and institutional participation. And the benefit is that if they do adopt it or even co-opt it, I can still permissionlessly participate, right? They can't stop me from participating. The same way that they can't stop me from consuming drugs or going to a prostitute if it's illegal in the country that I'm in, right? So that's always my favorite argument. Can Bitcoin be stopped? And I'm like, well, they could theoretically ban it, but that's really worked well with prostitution and drugs, right? It's like, it's
Yeah, I think that's basically the most important USP in this business language that Bitcoin has. Its uncensorability and its openness. So everybody has to be able to use it without ID and regardless of status or wealth. And I think that's the most important thing, isn't it?
Well, sure. So it's not that it's without ID. So, right, the 20th century paradigm is that you have a birth certificate, you have, high school diploma, you have a driver's license, you have a passport, you have all these documents that say that you have a right to do certain different things, okay, that establish your identity. And the idea behind public-private key pair cryptography is that is all it is that you need to have an identity, right? So it's not that we don't have identity, it's that we have identities that are not necessarily tied to personal data and not tied to the type of documentation or personal data that then enables you or gives you the right to do something. It's like an incredible human rights progression that all I need is this trustless way of establishing a transaction, whether it's financial or a message, yeah? That's not tied to my own whole personal history is an amazing, amazing development, what I call the 21st century paradigm, right? And this is going to, when we get past all of this sort of, friction about fighting with legacy systems, the level of permissionlessness that you've seen enabling innovation and business, right, in our parallel economy. Imagine that when that's actually the way that things work. Imagine the unleashed power, the unleashed development when nothing's more is tied to all of this cluttered. We both live in Austria, right? You know what a bureaucratic state is like, right? You can't breathe here without having permission. You need a license to be a window dresser here. So this permissionlessness unleashes innovation and removes friction, and that's why it is that I've always believed from the beginning why it is that Bitcoin would be successful is because it removes friction and makes systems more efficient. The fact that it's based on sound money is for me sort of like secondary. It's necessary, right, for it to be based on a sound money principle, but that what percolates out from all of that and all the development that we see that's been birthed on Ethereum, for example, and now all these other chains came from this solid level of, base layer of sound money. That enables everything else. And that's been the argument from the beginning. This is what we were talking about on the Cypherpunks mailing list. It's Bitcoin's USP hasn't changed. It's only been confirmed in my view.
And what are those future things that you see coming? Like, it sounds like everybody is going to have an ID just with his or her smartphone or device based on public, like cryptography, public-private keys.
We're going to see more walled gardens. You're going to see it basically at the OS and at the hardware level, right? You're going to have secure enclaves on your phone. You're going to have secure enclaves on other computing devices, and they will be tied to an ID that you can move in or out of. At some point, I would expect that Elon Musk is going to have ASICs in his cars or in his batteries or some other product. The earliest people that I met in Bitcoin were either poker players or physics professors, right? Very, very. One of my favorite stories is a Ukrainian physics professor that was hanging out in MetaLab. He lost 200,000 Bitcoin. 200,000 Bitcoin on Mt. Gox, okay? And he ended up committing suicide, right? But anyway, what he was doing is he was actually building mining rigs for people in Russia and Ukraine to heat their homes, right? one of the first people that I knew in Bitcoin that was serious about it, right? Already was at that point using the thermodynamics. And what are we doing now? We're using oil flares. We're using grow tents, tomatoes, hemp, whatever. We're actually, it's not in the forefront of this whole energy discussion right now, but there's already multiple companies that are using unused energy, and not only are they earning Bitcoin with it or mining Bitcoin with it, but they're doing secondary uses with thermodynamic energy to grow plants, for example. Yeah. So I mean, this is like really, really where I get to feel like a utopian hippie wet dream guy, like, wow, this is all pretty future, pretty futuristic stuff that I dreamed about as a kid in the 70s when we went through the first oil crash, right? And the whole global warming discussion, the whole sustainability, slow food, all that stuff is a debate. Are things that we went through in the 70s with the Whole Earth catalog, right? And the Whole Earth catalog was done by a guy named Stuart Brand, and Stuart Brand, pretty much was central at the well and central with all of these communities that I was involved with, right? And did the Long Now Foundation later on. So the sort of things that I see happening with Bitcoin, they literally come from my hippie, activist roots in California, where, Apple Computer was founded. Behind my university was the Rand Corporation. The Rand Corporation is the ones that came up with the Cold War, mutually assured destruction, game theory. Yeah, those guys came to my university and lectured and whatever, and that's the basis of Bitcoin. So for me, being alive today and looking at what's happening with Bitcoin, is, like I said, a hippie wet dream, and sort of like, pinch me, am I awake that this stuff is actually happening? So.
And so what's your opinion on the current backlash in a way on Bitcoin about its use, or many people say it should be banned because nobody needs it and all those things. Do you think this is just another blow, a tailwind, no, headwind, do you say, against Bitcoin, and it will go away because Bitcoin will, as you said, innovate how to use electricity or energy that otherwise is wasted anyhow?
Why is the environmental impact of Bitcoin going to be a deterrent to being used when oil being burned is not being used? There's an economic incentive attached to burning coal, to burning oil, and therefore we still have it. There's an economic incentive attached to burning energy to secure the network for Bitcoin. How is it that it's going to basically not survive? Why is it that the oil, we're already moving in the direction of renewables and all of this stuff, right? It's already happening. So how is it that oil is going to be more successful than Bitcoin is going to be more successful? It's just not evenly distributed yet, the future, so to speak, right? I think it's a storm in a teapot. I think it comes from two things. It comes, first of all, culturally from the hatred for science and the scientific method, the absolute failure of our civilizations to adequately educate people as to science, the scientific method, and we see that in the pure ignorance of the Trump administration and all the people that believe in that. Just a complete alternate reality that has literally no basis in any sort of facts. So there's a certain sort of cultural, educational ignorance that we have in our civilizations currently, manipulated and encouraged by the advertising revenue model, propaganda. We understand all of these things, right? So that's part of it. Secondarily, so basically for me, governments are not the threat for Bitcoin. Companies like Coinbase are. Mm-hmm. Coinbase and companies that basically suck regulatory cock are the threat, right? So why is Coinbase a threat? Because what they're trying to do is trying to get themselves into a monopoly situation where they can be custodians of people's data and people's economic assets, right? And so that's nothing different than the system that we've had so far, where banks have the authority to basically say whether you can transact or not, and they use that monopoly position to basically do crime. So when I hear any news show talking about Bitcoin is used to do crime, I just want to cry, because all of the crime happens over banks. We just had how many scams, how many drug deals, right? When the 2008 financial collapse happened, who saved the financial system? Mexican cartels put their cash money into the banks, and the banks were happy to fucking take it. Who does all of the drug money? Who does all of the drug running out of Afghanistan? Why are countries fighting over Afghanistan? For opium, both legal and illegal. Who runs the drug trade? The CIA, the KGB, the Mossad. I'm sorry, but I just can't take seriously institutions or organizations that try and pull the truth over my eyes that's out there for you to see if you want to look at it, right? So the second part of the dialogue around energy comes from economic interests that want to secure their place in being rent seekers, caretakers, and custodians over people's assets and their rights to transact. And that's why I'm doing Sovryn.
Yeah, I just, of course. That was the perfect segue to Sovryn. So what can we do? I mean, there are the Coinbases of the world, and there will be more of these centralized actors, of course, and they will, as you say, they are working together with the regulators. It goes so far that we now have so-called clean mining, like mining pools that say we only mine transactions that are not on the blacklist from the government. What can we do? So you're a part of the team of Sovryn. Tell us a little bit about Sovryn and what it does and why it's so special.
So Sovryn is in the first line as a protocol. It's a protocol in the same way that Bitcoin is a protocol. It's a set of deployed smart contracts on the RSK sidechain, which is merge mined with Bitcoin, sharing in Bitcoin's security guarantees. Okay, that's why we say it's DeFi on Bitcoin, is because it's using a layer 2 solution, which is the RSK side, the rootstock sidechain. Again, to repeat this because it's very, very important, it's merge mined with Bitcoin, which means that the same miners that are mining Bitcoin are mining rootstock, RSK, and we are sharing in the security guarantee. There are trade-offs.
Excuse me, there's no additional electricity needed, is it?
Well, I mean, no, actually not. No, actually, no.
It's the same as for Bitcoin. Yeah.
Exactly, right. Sovryn is a protocol. It's open source. It's on GitHub. It's auditable. It's forkable. Anybody can take it and duplicate what it is that's being done, right? The smart contracts are written in Solidity, which is the language that has enabled Ethereum to move forward at a speed that was different than Bitcoin moving forward, because scripting capabilities, Bitcoin script, was very, very complicated and very, very limited. There was no development around it because people were focused on other things, right? So Vitalik Buterin was in the forums and proposed basically, some sort of scripting composability for Bitcoin, and everybody went, go away. Stay away from our holy Austrian libertarian Gulch money, and just run away, kid. And so, he wrote about it more. He attracted Gavin Wood, and basically on an About Me profile. So Vitalik Buterin was on About Me and said, hey, I wrote this paper and blah, blah, blah. And Gavin Wood got in touch and said, okay, it's cool. And they ended up meeting and discussing and developing things together, and eventually decided to launch Ethereum on Bitcoin. People forget that Ethereum was the first ICO on Bitcoin. Who supported Ethereum at the beginning? Bitcoiners. All of the original Ethereum people, Bitcoiners. So this is where I get really, really sort of like disgusted and frustrated by the flippening and tribal debates around Ethereum and Bitcoin, because the people who started it are all totally conscious of what Bitcoin is. Originally, Ethereum was launched exactly for this energy debate. That was the argument at the beginning, right? Okay, we're wasting all of this energy, so let's do proof of stake. Uses less energy, right? Has a different set of security guarantees, but it was a very, very hippie, utopian sort of inception that was based around, and people forget this, really, I don't understand how the people can forget this that have been around, was exactly for this reason, right? So now it is that we have solidity on RSK. So in 2016, Sergio Lerner gave his first talk about Rootstock. They drew a huge amount of capital, I think close to $1 billion, again, in Bitcoin, to build this network. And it's now finally come to fruition years later. There's a lot of discussions around the security guarantees, around the federators, and all these things around Rootstock, but it's a different animal. The question is, how do you provide composability and layer 2 solutions on top of Bitcoin? One of the ways that we've done it so far has been Lightning, and I'd like to go back and say also again, when the Lightning paper came out in 2014, I think, I think it was 2014. We were saying at the Bitcoin Foundation, we could use Lightning by the end of the year and get away from transaction fees. It took years and years and years for Lightning to get to the point where it is right now. Simultaneously, RSK is developing, and now we're at the point where we have composable scripted contracts for doing other things on top of Bitcoin. So that's what's unique about Rootstock, and this is where Sovryn sits, is at the intersection between sound money, security guarantees, permissionlessness on top of Bitcoin, with the additional scripting capabilities that have been developed over the last 5 years in Ethereum, right? Mm-hmm. So taking Sovryn as a protocol and taking RSK as a side chain, we also have an application, which is what people see, and that's live.sovryn.app. And what that is a decentralized exchange. Decentralized in the sense that, first of all, Sovryn has no company. It's a group of contributors that are around the GitHub repo that launched a token, which is a coordination token. It's not a shit coin like people like to say. It's a coordination token. And what this coordination token is allows you to participate in governance of the protocol, right? So you can acquire SOV, and when you have SOV, you can stake it in our governance process, which is called Bitocracy. And when you stake your tokens in the Bitocracy, depending on the length of the stake and the number that you stake, your voting power is calculated quadratically. Right? Mm-hmm. So there's a balance in between whales and small holders. Again, quadratic voting was an idea that came from Vitalik Buterin, and that was expanded together with Glenn Weil. I think you've even spoken with Glenn, or maybe not, but then went on to be quadratic funding, which is implemented at Gitcoin, where we're doing the hackathon, right? So we have all of these different things that are happening inside of Sovryn. So you have the governance staking of the token, but what's unique about it is that you also, when you stake, you share in all the fees that are generated on the platform. So there's no entity, all right? There's no group of people that are profiting from having this exchange. Everybody who has a token, everybody who holds SOV is getting a percentage of the fees generated by the platform. So it's basically what I like to call participatory revenue sharing. PRS. I have a purse. It's not equity, right? I'm participating in sharing the revenue that's generated by the platform. So we thought about this very, very carefully in terms of, is it a security? What type of language do you use, and all of that? And at a certain point, it doesn't really matter because you can't stop it. It's a protocol that's running now. We can't turn it off. And we've built an application on top of it, which allows for borrowing, lending, trading, market making, yield farming, liquidity providing, and you can do all of those things on the platform. And here's the kicker. You never give up your keys to your crypto. You can always move in and you can always move out because they're your private keys. You're signing transaction on the Sovryn platform using your private keys. We do not store them. We do not have access to them. There's not an order book. You keep your Bitcoin on your ledger. You sign from your ledger or your Trezor. Yeah. So it's always your private key. And we can't stop anybody from taking their crypto out of the system. There are slashing rewards if you're staking or providing liquidity. There's all kinds of, game theoretical economics around that to incentivize long-term thinking. But essentially, it's permissionless. It's a decentralized exchange, and it's running on a protocol that we cannot stop. Yeah, and if any of the developers that are getting compensated for maintaining the protocol want to change the smart contracts, it has to go through the governance process. So we're now on our 19th SIP, Sovereign Improvement Protocol. So it's not BIP, it's not EEP, it's SIP. And the 19th one was just, we'll go to vote on Monday. And that is from the Exchequer Committee, which was voted in by SOV holders to manage the funds for the development of the protocol. And the total budget for the year is now up for a vote, and SOV holders will be able to say, yes, we want this group of people to spend this amount of money or not. So it's a set of consensus rules. And by participating in the consensus, you also share in the economic success of the platform. That's the decentralized exchange and decentralized governance model that Sovryn is doing based on the sound money guarantees of Bitcoin. So anybody out there that's saying that DeFi is not happening on Bitcoin just doesn't want to see the reality. They're locked up in some sort of dogmatic, non-adversarial, non-curious, worldview, and it's happening around them. And you can go black is white if you want to, but that's going to be just as effective as the Trump administration was. Time will show that DeFi is happening on Bitcoin.
So, but where do you see the differences between DeFi on Bitcoin and DeFi on Ethereum or all the other platforms?
It's not really relevant. Who cares which chain it's on?
Yeah, but doesn't it have other properties? I mean, is it less secure or less decentralized, is it not uncensorable anymore? I mean, as far as I know, the proof of stake is not so highly secure than proof of work in being I'm
so tired of this debate. Really. Proof of stake, proof of work, who cares? They're both developing. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Okay.
It's all one crypto.
It's one crypto world.
Yeah. Crypto maximalism. I'm into that, right? My threat model is, like I said, fiat institutions, and fiat not only in an economic sense, but in a social sense. Fiat, by decree.
Mm. And innovation can live on all platforms. I mean, innovation is good everywhere, right. So it comes back. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't like things like Tron. I don't like things like EOS. I think Cardano is just like a tank trying to be a Ferrari. I think projects like Avalanche are interesting. I think Matic is interesting. I think Near Protocol is interesting. They're definitely, I think Zcash is interesting. But again, I don't know if you've seen Edon's most recent clip that's up on the Sovryn Twitter account, which says that if you're in crypto, you're a Bitcoiner. You just don't realize it. Why? Because everything stands or falls based on the sound money guarantees and the hash rate security guarantees of Bitcoin. If Bitcoin fails, the whole thing fails. Proof of stake with Ethereum would never survive without Bitcoin. That's my personal point of view. But I think that there's a place for both. And the reason that Ethereum excited me, right? Why I moved into working in Ethereum in 2000, around the ICO craze, basically. Why I moved into Ethereum is because that's where all the innovation was happening. Right? That's where all the curiosity was happening. That's where all the adversarial thinking was happening. And now we're having this debate on crypto Twitter about, basically Bitcoin being a pet rock, and Ethereum being, a unicorn or something exciting. And there's a lot of truth to that, right? Basically, there hasn't been much happening in Bitcoin, and there's been a fuck lot of shit happening on Ethereum. And, there's been a lot of innovation, and eventually it's all going to be implemented on Bitcoin and RSK, Solidity contracts. What we're doing there is one of those things. Then you have people like Eric Martindale with Fabric Protocol, right? Who first started talking about that in 2017 at Parallele Polis. Fabric Protocol is now, basically a messaging bridge, similar to Sphinx Chat. There's basically a Bitcoin-based Discord fork, called Grove.chat, using the Fabric protocol from Eric Martindale, who was one of the original Bitcoin programmers. So there's innovation and development has been slow on Bitcoin, but now it's going to accelerate. And anybody that doesn't want to get on the train is just cutting off their nose to spite their face. If you're into Bitcoin, then you should be into composability. You should be into layer 2 solutions. You should start informing yourself and learning instead of just paying attention to your favorite guy on Twitter who built a following by being a libertarian, clean money guy, and it just doesn't want to do anything or think anything different because they're afraid of losing the follower group that they've found out. I mean, I just find it to be incredibly disgusting, to be honest.
Yeah, and all the time, only the price is in the headlines and everywhere, but all the innovation that's happening, nobody sees it. And suddenly then people will open their eyes in a few years.
I mean, what a waste of time the whole Blockstream debate was. Blockstream controls Bitcoin because they've funded some Bitcoin core developers. After everybody's going, can please all the people that are making money fund some Bitcoin developers? Okay, now we funded the Bitcoin developers. Oh, why are you going to own Bitcoin? How dumb are people, man? Blockstream, Adam Back, wrote Hashcash, built a company on that, had sent satellites up so that we can do, that we can keep. You just can't satisfy people. So at some point you just need to start discerning for yourself, right? Like, what is the signal amongst all of the noise? What is rational here? What's actually going on? And make your own decisions. So it's just like anything in society. There's propaganda. You have to filter through the signal and the noise. You have to see what people's interests are, and you have to have some ability to go, okay, people are acting in their own rational self-interest. It's not a conspiracy. And Bitcoin as a system is designed to level the playing field so all of that competition ends up in maintaining the equilibrium of the system and nobody can really get the upper hand. And if you look at the past, 12 years of history, nobody's gotten the upper hand, and I don't see why anybody's going to get the upper hand in the future. And we're going to continue to have these kind of debates. We're going to continue to have these sort of, arguments about the different things about Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, and I find that healthy. I don't understand, again, why does it people have a problem with this adversarial debate stuff, unless it's just often this ad hominem sort of area or based on no rational information or data.
So Sovryn was launched recently, some months ago, and you're developing very fast.
Slow, man. Yeah. It's been amazing thing. So basically, Sovryn was established with some seed capital, about $1.5 million in seed capital last year, with a small group of people that essentially during the pandemic had gotten together to do 3D printing for masks around the world. And you could so there were people with 3D printers, and if there was a 3D printer in your area, you could get a mask printed. So a classic hacker project where, okay, we're going to network with everybody over the internet and, we're going to provide masks. And they found out that they were all Bitcoiners. And they were all like, we're sitting on our Bitcoin, like we can't earn any money with it. And look what's happening in Ethereum. Like, everybody's earning, money on their holdings, doing yield farming in Ethereum. Why isn't this happening on Bitcoin? I want to earn with my Bitcoin. So they got together and they basically wrote it last year with a little bit of seed capital. And then there were 2 public sales that were advertised publicly. The coin was offered at a discount to early investors. With caps on investment and the amount available. And then it went live actually on the platform. So basically this group of people got together, wrote a protocol, wrote a platform, launched a token on it, and funded themselves on their own exchange. This is kind of mind-boggling for me. And I got a call in January from one of the early contributors who you've interviewed, Idan Yago, who I've known for many, many, many years in the space. But, long time ago, Colored Coin, Master Coin days, back in the early days. He's been around a long time. And he pinged me and said, hey, listen, I'm not really, I need somebody to help build the community here. And I said, okay, cool. So I went over, and in those 4 months, we've done a public sale. We've launched margin trading on the platform, so you can lend, you can borrow on their 1.5 collateral. So over collateralized loans. And just this last week, we've launched a bridge to Ethereum. And we now have a liquidity mining program where people are bringing their Ethereum over the bridge that we built. About $14 million in liquidity has come over in the last 3 days in Ethereum. And that bridge is also a bridge to Binance. So this week we're going to be launching a bridge to Binance, and many other things, many other chains. And so, everybody's always asking about, so when are you going to be listed on Uniswap? When are you going to be listed on other exchanges? And we just went, we are an exchange. Why do we need to list anywhere else? Mohammed didn't go to the mountain came to Mohammed. We're something different. People can come to us, right? So we made a decision together with the community to not launch SOV as a token on other exchanges on Ethereum, but rather to bring the liquidity into the system. Why did we do that? Because the transaction fees on Rootstock are 100% cheaper than they are on Ethereum. If you pay $14 or $50 for a contract transaction to place a trade on Ethereum, you're paying 7 cents on RSK. And people say, okay, well, that's going to go up when there's more usage. No, it's not going to go up when there's more usage because it's a sidechain. Yeah, so... Mm-hmm. And then we're doing research and in other scaling technologies. Optimistic rollups are coming. It's on our roadmap for the next quarter. Packaging, doing calculation off chain with rollups.
Whatever that is, to be honest, whatever that is, I don't know.
Let's leave it and let your listeners do that. So this is new terminology, so people zero knowledge proofs essentially. So optimistic rollups is where it is that you get the information, you calculate it off chain, you don't do the proofs on chain. Okay.
I understand. Okay.
So rollups are the hot thing in Ethereum for the last 2 years.
And the bridge means that now I can also take my Ether and use it on Sovryn to lend it.
Exactly. So you bring your Ethereum over to the Sovryn platform, and we have an Ethereum BTC pool. And there'll be an Ethereum SOV pool and et cetera. And so you can basically, you can do all of the things that you do on other on other DeFi platforms, you can do on Sovryn, essentially with the lowest fees anywhere in crypto to be doing it. So people are waking up to that and the capital's coming in. In addition to that, we're also providing, yield farming rewards in the form of SOV. So we're not paying out in the tokens, we're paying out yield in the form of SOV, and that SOV is vested for 10 months. Which means that if you get free SOV from us for providing liquidity to the pool, in calculating for impermanent loss of how it is that the two coins perform against each other. We're giving SOV rewards, and 1/10 of that SOV unlocks every month. And it's also automatically gives you voting power in the system. So all of the yield farming rewards that we're giving are incentivizing people to participate in the governance of the platform, and is incentivizing long-term thinking, right? So that's also what's different about how it is that we're doing coin rewards or token rewards, is that we are forcing people to not take immediate profit. So say, okay, yes, you should have your profit, but you should be holding it and looking forward. HODL. Yeah. So that's baked into the protocol as well.
Mm-hmm. I got one question to the decentralization. I mean, one thing that we're always looking out for is the regulation. So more and more regulation is then again a problem for people who don't have a regular ID, like a government ID or something like that. Do I need to do KYC on Sovryn, or how does this work?
I don't even know what you're talking about. What's KYC?
Know your customer identification. Like I have to upload my identification, my passport or something like that, and my residency, state of residency, Meldetitel, like on exchanges, to be able to exchange euros to Bitcoin.
I'm sort of trolling you. It's good that you say it, though. My answer is, what is that?
I understand. Now I understand what you meant. Okay.
It's just financial surveillance and maintaining monopoly custodial position. Yeah. Backed by the power of the state, which has an incentive to maintain their monopoly over money. They don't have a monopoly over money anymore. They cannot stop Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies without turning off the internet. And even if they turn off the internet, we'll broadcast the block over radio transmission and satellite transmission and whatever. The technologies are there. The incentives, to develop them came from the earliest days in Bitcoin. The fact of the matter is the internet is not going to get shut down. The fact of the matter is there's always going to be a jurisdiction that you can do jurisdictional arbitrage that will have an on-ramp onto fiat. The only place that crypto can be regulated by existing institutions is at the edges of the network where it intersects with the legacy systems. Crypto is how many, a trillion or whatever economy? It's a drop in the bucket in world terms, but it has been existing now for 12 years. The Bitcoin network has never gone down. We've had a couple of forks. It's the most secure network on the planet. That's the whole point of proof of work, burning the energy for the security guarantees and the transaction finality, and maintaining the integrity of the network. I just don't see what the point is of KYC. I don't need it anymore. And Exiledsurfer is, not only just like a nom de plume, but I don't have a passport. My passport was revoked by the American government. Why was the passport revoked by the American government? Well, they found out that I was working for the Bitcoin Foundation, and so they were looking at everybody in the Bitcoin Foundation, and I kind of had this old arrest warrant in America from 1992 that they discovered and went, okay, we're going to revoke your passport. I'm literally like the use case, right? Of I don't have all the documents. I don't have any of the permission. I don't have any credit rating, right? Because of my residency status. I don't have any of those things. I'm like a Palestinian, basically. I have no travel documents. I do have residency permission in Austria, thankfully. I do have a driver's license. I could do those types of KYC, but why should I when I can transact permissionlessly with Bitcoin or Ethereum? Yeah, I just don't see how it is that existing institutions and existing systems can do anything other than basically threaten people with some sort of ethical argument that Bitcoin is bad and you shouldn't use it, which is why that's exactly what it is that they do. is try and make you feel like a bad person or a criminal for basically wanting to be able to transact without a third party standing in between you and telling you can do it or not. I just choose to stand. If that makes me a criminal, then I choose to stand on the side of being a criminal. It's a personal risk assessment. I'm one of the few people in the team in Sovryn that is known publicly, right? But I think, so what are you going to do to me? Okay, the classic thing, I had a boating accident, if you want my private key, right? So then what's the next level of I had a boating accident? They still believe that I have a private key. It's the rubber hose thing. We're going to beat you until you give us, or we're going to waterboard you or whatever. Man, what can I say? If that's what the world comes to, and me as a Bitcoiner, ends up getting beat with a rubber hose because I'm involved with a protocol that they can't stop. I mean, what do you stand for? At what point are people willing to say, no, I'm not going to allow myself to be threatened? Yeah. I don't know how I'd react if I'm getting beat by a rubber hose, but what I can tell you is that if I get beaten by a rubber hose or waterboarded, I'll tell them anything that they want to know. I don't know anything that they want to know. I don't. Right? So there's multi-sigs. Who controls the multi-sigs, or which protocol controls the multi-sigs? It's all been, set up in a way that basically they'd have to get 15 people in 15 different countries. It's the same threat model that we have with federators and whatever. I don't actually see this stuff happening. I see maybe a band of your favorite local criminal that's going to beat you to do that. But I don't see governments doing that. I see governments getting into regulating mining, right? So KYC, I left KYC behind, in 2012 when I started getting, paid for doing my work in Bitcoin, and it's gotten easier and easier to transact with that across. We have stable coins. I mean, the whole economy has developed so far past that there's a lot of paranoid threat modeling that people do that I just don't understand, because I just don't see them knocking on the door. And I've been a public guy in Bitcoin for 10 years, man, and nobody's knocking on my door and threatening me and stopping me from doing what it is I'm doing. There's videos of me on YouTube. I'm on government watch lists. I have an FBI file, and here it is that I'm talking to you and building a protocol for a decentralized exchange. So what's my message through all that? Free yourself from mental slavery. Like Bob Marley saying, don't let yourself feel threatened by all the bullshit that's going on in the world, man. Don't let yourself not be a free person. Don't let yourself not be sovereign. You have rights to decide what it is that you want to do with yourself on this planet while you're here. You have rights to, decide how it is that you want to transact, and you don't have to obey the fucking government, man, and feel like a criminal because all you want to do is send $14 to somebody in Kenya. What the fuck, man? Hello, what is this? I mean, the KYC is the biggest scam and the biggest waste of money, because what do they capture with all the money, with all of this regulation? 0.5%. 0.5% of the corruption in the world. And the corruption's not being done by me and you. Okay, everybody doesn't declare everything on their taxes. Where's the corruption happening? It's multi-billion-dollar shit that's happening on a level that none of us have any sort of access to. And all of the KYC stuff is nothing but friction and a control of your freedom. It's not getting any of the people that are utilizing the system as it stands to basically, fuck everybody else. Man, I don't buy into it. I'm not going to be threatened by it, and I'm going to do everything that I can to enable other people to transact permissionlessly. And it's just such a no-brainer for me. KYC.
Yeah, and that's basically that's a nice comprehension of what cypherpunks want. Like, cypherpunks write the code to protect ourselves. Like, we're building.
Cypherpunks write code.
Yeah, cypherpunks write code to protect ourselves from all these, as you say, and I say shit, from the government and like all those surveillance stuff.
I've been told my whole life that I should be threatened. I feel threatened by black people. I should be threatened by this. I should be threatened by people who believe in a different God. The only thing that I've ever felt threatened by my whole life has been the government. That is my single. And I look around everywhere, and it doesn't matter really which ism it is. I don't care if it's democracy. I don't care if it's social democracy. I don't care if it's communism. I don't care if it's a flavor of whatever. All I see is a bunch of oligarchs on the planet right now, sucking the air, out of the room. I feel threatened by governments, and I don't know how it is that other people don't. And I don't mean the people that are obviously involved in revolutions around the world, that are fighting against that stuff. I don't understand how the average white bread middle class person, with all of the advantages, does not feel threatened by their government. They've been lulled into a sense of complacency that I just don't understand. How is it you can look around and not see all of the suffering on the planet, all of the, how can you just go on living your life and not wanting to be doing something about it, other than you are afraid that the government is going to take away what it is that you have? At what point do people wake up and go, what dream am I living in? It's not, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a hippie.
I think they're spending all their time in obey the rules and consume stuff, like work and consume. That's the thing people do most of the times.
Yeah. So can we let's bring it back down. Let's bring it back to about what else it is that we're doing about it.
That would have been my next question. It's about the hackathon you're planning. So what's the goal for the hackathon? And maybe we also have listeners who don't know what a hackathon is. Please explain.
So hackathons basically grew out of LAN parties and the demo scene. And LAN parties were local area network gaming. So when when somebody had a LAN box with Ethernet cables before we had wireless, you'd get together and, with a bunch of cables, and everybody would do multiplayer gaming. Right. And simultaneous with multiplayer gaming, LAN parties, there was also what was called the demo scene. And the demo scene was that you would write code in real time with people around you, and there would be competitions. Right. And that sort of grew into hackathons. And then also when we started seeing DDoSing of sites on the internet and stuff, and the word hacker and the film hackers and all of this stuff. It's sort of like a collective culture that grew into that you have a 1, 3, 5, 7 day event where people come together and you have a theme and you say, okay, in those 3 days, we're going to intensively build something. And you put a team together, and one guy writes the Python code, the other guy writes the front end, and you compete against each other in the sense that you have a short period of time to show everybody what it is that you do. And at the end of the hackathon, you get up and you do a presentation, right? People are used to this in venture capital, where you have a pitch deck. You have 15 minutes right? So people in VC, they get together and they make their project and they make a pitch deck, and then they go and do a dog and pony show with VC. And in the hacker world, it's hackathons. And so many different things that we know, found their start in hackathons, where people who didn't know each other got together and, looked to solve a problem. Like, what's the problem that we want to solve, right? So I've been involved in that culture for a long time, and as I said, started working in Ethereum and doing hackathons, ETH Berlin. Doing the speaker programming and being involved in the co-production team of ETH Berlin. During DevCon 4, I did a side event called Crypto Life with Status IM, which birthed a number of projects like Leap DAO is one of them that came out of Crypto Life Hackathon. Also Mintbase, which is run by a guy named Nate Geyer, who's an NFT platform on Ethereum. Things that people are familiar with, Uniswap, SushiSwap, came out of Ethereum hackathons. So I've been involved in that space. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the contracts for Sovryn are written in Solidity, the Ethereum world. So we started looking around because we're expanding the team. We grew from 15 to 60. We still have 40 open positions in the last 4 months, and you can't find any Solidity developers in a bull market. With this dip that we're at right now, we're still in a bull market. If you look at the the trend lines across the years. So I started reaching out once I joined Sovryn because we needed developers and UI UX people, and basically everybody I know was working. And there's tons of money sloshing around at the moment, and there's not a lot of developers. So I was like, all right. So how can I get access to developers in Ethereum for a DeFi project on Bitcoin? A hackathon. So we're doing that on Gitcoin, and Gitcoin is a unique animal in the space. There's no equivalent in Bitcoin. Gitcoin was an early consensus project. They've just recently spun out and now have their own governance token, which allows you to participate in the governance of the Gitcoin platform. And the Gitcoin's mission is to fund open source software development, whether it's in the crypto space or any sector. It's a portal that you log on to that has prize bounties, and it's so not only are there hackathons there, but there's an ongoing companies, projects post a bounty. Hey, I need I need this smart contract review done. I need this. I need to do that. And it's basically a way to get paid for your skills in coding. And they've basically distributed over $12.5 million over the last years to open source developers, and so people are getting paid in tokens, in Ethereum, in DAI. In you can basically any of the ERC20 tokens are available on the Gitcoin platform, and it's an incredibly vibrant network of developers. I think it's over 92,000 developers are on the platform. So I've been, I know the Gitcoin team and have participated in many events together with them. And so I thought this is the best place that we can do a hackathon. So I spoke with the leadership circle and budget committee in Sovryn, said I want to do a hackathon to basically find talent. And so we're putting up $500,000 in SOV for bounties and post-hackathon grants in 5 different tracks. We'll be giving prizes, and then the intention is from those prize winners that we provide grants to further develop their project. And what we're looking for are things that intersect with our product, or that also bring the space forward. So it's not only limited to Sovryn as a platform, but DeFi as a whole. So looking to inform Bitcoiners about this way of incentivized development. You can keep arguing about shitcoins if you want to, but we're so far past that point, right? There's an interlocking economy of people with aligned interests in Ethereum that are all holding equity in each other's projects. Everybody's holding each other's tokens. Those tokens are available in pools like Uniswap, and it's incentivized, an incredible amount of development that's rocketed Ethereum forward. And so we want to bring that back as a homecoming to Bitcoin. We don't think that Ethereum is going to stop existing. We don't think it should stop existing. We think that it's great that it exists, right? Because it has provided an on-ramp for this to start happening on Bitcoin. So the second goal of the conference is a meeting of the minds, is a meeting of the interests, a meeting of curiosity, a meeting of adversarial thinkers from any chain, right? That we come together and say, how do we advance DeFi? How do we advance identity? How do we advance privacy and shielded transactions? How do we advance all of these things based on Bitcoin's sound money and security guarantees? So I pulled together a number of people from across the space, from both the Ethereum and Bitcoin worlds, that are thinking in this way and that get it. and we're going to have panels, 3 days of talks, and at the beginning of the hackathon and 3 days at the end. And then we'll judge this stuff, and the best projects will incentivize further with grants. But it doesn't stop there. The vision goes further. So in addition to all the DeFi aspects of Sovryn, we also have a token launch platform, which is called Origins. And so since we launched our own token on our own platform, we're now launching tokens to incentivize development for DeFi products. And the first two that we're doing is called Money on Chain, which is a stablecoin project that came out of Mexico, which we have as stablecoin collateral on our system. They have two products, and then a second one is called Babblefish Money. And what Babblefish Money is a basket of stable coins. So we are implementing the Babblefish Money protocol on Sovryn. It's an integrated part of our product, and to continue with the development, they are now doing token launches on the Origins platform of Sovryn. And think about this. If you hold SOV, then you're going to be getting an airdrop of these token launches of products that are integrated with the Sovryn platform. So the roadmap is we do a hackathon, we support further with grants. There are VC companies that are interested in providing additional seed capital to build teams. And so that'll be the roadmap that we incentivize VCs to invest in teams that have proven themselves with product development through the hackathon and through a grant process. And then we will provide them an on-ramp to actually do their own token launch to fund their operations and their protocol, interlocked with open, decentralized governance. So no companies, this is all part of the whole future of decentralized autonomous organizations or DAOs or however you want to call them, but we don't even see the need for that. The only relevant thing is a multi-sig that controls where it is that the money goes, and those multi-sigs should have a governance process back behind them. So that's the roadmap, and that's our vision for the year. And it starts with the hackathon. The hackathon is backed by what it is that we've done over the last 6 months. And we're inviting Bitcoiners and Ethereans to come together and basically build a permissionless future. Everything that exists on Ethereum can exist on RSK. It's solidity. We're speaking with Avalanche. We're also having Stacks, which is people see as a competitor in the Bitcoin DeFi space. Munib, who's been working for many years with Stacks, is going to be one of the judges. We're reaching out to Thorchain. We're speaking with Lightning. We're speaking with anybody who wants to enable permissionless or frictionless transactions, and just trying to incentivize and kickstart the ecosystem on Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. And are you looking only for developers or also for people who do product management and other stuff?
Well, of course. So the idea behind a hackathon is that people come together, they examine the prize bounties, they come into the Discord channels. So there'll be Discord channels for each of the bounty tracks, and say, hey, I do this. Do you guys need that? Who's doing that? And the idea is that in 6-week period of time, that people find each other with skill sets and common interests, and in that 6-week time, build something that can be implemented, right? So it's like, build us something that works, right? To the degree that it can. And if we look at it and we go, okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, we'll give you money for having done it, and we'll reward you to keep developing it. But it has to be something that has some sort of like relevance, right? So yes, UI, UX people, product managers, however it is that people get together to, somebody needs to do the slide deck. Somebody needs to do the video for YouTube, right? So there's a whole set of submission guidelines of what makes a complete submission. So it's a GitHub repo with auditable code. It's a product description and a pitch deck and a video. And so it's like it's an accelerator. It's an incubator. That's what a hackathon is for us. It's a way of using open source software where everything is open for everybody to see and to audit, as is the ethic and the base of our community. And you say, okay, so you think you have an idea, build it. Cypherpunks write code, show us to it. And that needs also people that communicate that. So people gather together in a virtual space, chat room. They can also connect over Zoom or Jitsi or whatever, however it is that people from all over the world get together and focus for 6 weeks to accomplish something, to earn a reward, with the idea that it's going to be the best projects will be funded further.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how is the application process working, and when is it starting?
Okay, so right now you can go to sovryn.sovryn.app, and there's a sign up form there, and it'll take you eventually to Gitcoin, to the page. So it'll walk you through the process and provide you a link to Gitcoin. And you sign up on Gitcoin, and as of June 4th, there will be prize bounties in the Bounty Explorer on Gitcoin for the Sovryn Hackathon. And you sign up on Gitcoin and you do a profile, and there you can explore the prize bounties and connect with people that want to collaborate with that on Gitcoin. And then in our Discord channel. So there'll be mentors, and I'll be in channels and helping people and answering questions, and other people will be doing so as well. And then you have 6 weeks to submit a completed project, which will then be judged.
Okay, wow, great. Did we miss anything?
Well, in addition to our bounties, so we're giving $500,000 in bounties and grants. We also have additional partners, the Kosh Network, API3, ENS domains, and Interlay are also adding another, I think it's about $150,000 or $175,000 in bounties and grants to this. It could end up being more by the time that it is that the hackathon launches. And yeah, so there'll be online content. Okay, right. So we're also going to be live streaming a side event from Bitcoin Miami. So we launched the same day as Bitcoin Miami. On the 4th in the evening, John Light, also known as Litecoin on Twitter, is doing a multi-chain Miami event where there's also going to be speakers. And so we'll be including that as content. Hopefully you'll be joining us to moderate panels during our content. That would be really cool. So there's the hackathon, there's the content program. I'm going to make it up as I go along, basically. There's a rough framework, but there's a certain amount of spontaneity to it. So as things develop and people pay attention to it and want to get involved, then we'll find a way to get people involved. And so what it is that I'm doing doesn't begin and end with the hackathon. It's just like a way of saying hello to everybody. Come and talk to us and show us what it is that you want to do. And we'll do whatever it is that we can to enable it. Yeah. There's 15 projects that we're working on at the moment that we're not even talking about publicly. There's so much activity that's going on, and they're all in various stages of percolating and being enabled to basically run and finance and govern themselves. And we're just acting as an enabler. None of us are trying to get rich on this, other than have an infrastructure that we can use our crypto without having to participate in the system as it exists now, right? So that's the goal, is creating all the stuff that we want to use and that we need, and looking forward on not just what's in front of our nose, but what's happening in 1, 3, 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm. What a fascinating new world, actually. I mean, also for me, hackathons, when I started with the internet in 1997, there was not such a thing like that, at least not here in Austria, and always in this business context, you don't have that. I mean, I don't know how it is today. Maybe that's more, but yeah, sounds, interesting. So thank you very much for this wide-ranging conversation. I learned something new, like from the history of Bitcoin, and also I like the perspective you have on that we live in a crypto world, and it's not Bitcoin against anything else in the space. Like,
it's just silly to think like that. How can you look at what's happening on Ethereum? I mean, you can have disagreements about proof of stake or proof of work. You can have opinions about how many tokens the Ethereum Foundation holds and how many tokens Vitalik holds. I think he's been a pretty, philanthropic, leader of the protocol. You can have opinions about that stuff, and they're valid, right? But that doesn't devalidate the whole protocol or the whole thing that's happening on Ethereum. Same thing goes for Bitcoin. I mean, none of the arguments or discussions that we're having around layer 2 tech on Bitcoin, none of it takes away from it to have these discussions. It's just sort of silly, right? They are both have apparently aspects that make people interested in using them. And both of them are outside of state control. Yeah. You can argue about the degree of centralization, but this is another thing that people need to get through their head. Decentralization is only a tool. It's not the full goal. Decentralization is in our toolbox for threat modeling. How it is that you maintain the stability of the network to the degree possible. It's not the be all and end all of this. It's one of the things that is implemented in crypto that's of interest. And there's just disappointing silliness in the debate for me. It's disappointing to see how far it's descended. People that had I watched a lot of young people come up. I don't want to name any names, but there's a lot of young people that I watched come up through the space that originally, when they appeared up, I was like, okay, great, cool. Here's another guy that gets it. Cool. Support them, talk to them, la, la, la. And they developed into these just rock solid, dogmatic, narrow thinkers that are just repeating a dialogue and are not willing to look left or right other than anything that it is that they understood when they first got a Bitcoin epiphany, right? It's like a religious dogma, oh, okay, I found God, and the only God that I found is the only God there is the God that I found. There can't be any other gods. It's just doesn't really bring us forward, and it's very, very, it's why I'm, openly trying to do what I can to combat that. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's also always great to talk to you, Anita. You're one of those people that I saw show up in the space as well, and your career has been really enjoyable for me to watch. You're curious, and you go and ask the right questions, and I've watched you learn. You're bringing out a book soon. That's, I think, going to be really awesome. You for me are like the perfect Bitcoiner in that sense. You're curious and you ask the right questions and you put it all together into some sort of understandable form, and then you give it to others. And that's, I think, an obligation that we all have, is to pass on, our knowledge that we have in understanding these things. It's an obligation. So you're one of my highly respected peers in the space, and thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much for these kind words. I can only give them back. And I'm looking forward to all the developments on Sovryn and in the space, because it's also for me something new to learn, to be honest. I mean, I had my Bitcoin epiphany, and now I wrote that book, Learn Bitcoin, which is about the basics and how to be sovereign with your finances. But I think the next chapter, it has to be something new. And that's basically, building these crypto space. That's, like the exit from government control.
Well, I'm going to make you a promise. Okay. I'm going to make you a promise, right? By the time that you catch up with DeFi, we're going to have stuff that you're going to have to learn again. Okay. I make you that promise. There's cool stuff happening in Bitcoin. There's cool stuff happening in crypto. And by the time you get your head around that, we're going to challenge you with some new stuff too. Yeah. So
I'm pretty sure about that. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much. Have a good day and see you next time. See you soon.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for joining the Anita Posch Show today to learn more about Bitcoin. You can find the show notes for this conversation on anita.link/show. If you want to get the best stories in Bitcoin from my point of view in your mailbox, go to anita.link/weekly and subscribe. And if you have a question or just want to send me some feedback, drop me a line at hello@anitaposch.com. See you next week when it's time for the Anita Posch Show. Music, start with yes, delicate beats. Content, idea and production, Anita Posch.